With July this year marking 5 years since I began this channel, I admit I would never have imagined my channel would get to this point. From being a complete unknown in July 2017 to where I am at the moment, however I do admit I'm not the best spotter, by a long way. Why? Because I know there are other spotting channels out there that are more better than myself. As a hobby itself, train spotting in some ways can be fun. In general, overall, as long as you stick to the basic rules regarding health and safety at any station, and as long as you comply with them at all times, you should be good to go. What the video is about is related to an important thing when you do plan any trip for train spotting is to take into account the weather conditions, and whilst most times, whether it's spring, summer, autumn or winter, from sunny skies to overcast to snow, there are sometimes occasions the weather can easily catch you off guard when you least expect it. And yes, I admit there have been times that myself have been caught off guard, in particular when it's a rainy day, and whilst yes it can be a very wet experience, however in spotting sometimes you just have to ride it out. So in this video, this is my top 5 experiences filming in the rain. So let's get into it. At number 5 is Penzance from August 16th, 2019. Well, one thing I've learned since I moved to the southwest is that in the summertime, yes, it can be known for sun, sand and sea. However, when it comes to the weather, it can be unpredictable, and even on summer days, when it does rain, it pours big time. I remember my experience of my only visit to Penzance, the furthest station in southwest you can go on the UK Rail Network, felt more like autumn in August rather than summer. It was a wet rainy day with heavy rain and winds nearly 20 to 25 miles an hour, and of course what made that worse is that the station sits right on top of the Atlantic Ocean. Filming there for over 2 hours, and despite the frequency of trains at the time being not good, overall it was an interesting experience there. Because yes, I wanted to see what Penzance station was like, even though it's quite a long journey down by train, and of course no surprises when the last train to film came in actually would turn out to be my train up to Truro. By then, by the time I finished, I was completely cold, wet and kind of exhausted, but overall it was fun. Although maybe I should have been probably a little bit more prepared on that occasion. At number 4 is Swindon from 2 months prior, on June 15th, 2019. Well, okay, it wasn't exactly raining throughout, such like Penzance did, but bizarrely the weather by mid-June 2019 didn't feel like summer at all. In fact, it felt more like spring, and yes, the rain was hovering around about throughout the morning and early afternoon. At one point, there was one clip of a service to Weston-super-Mare that it was pouring down like crazy. However, at the very end of the video, I thought to try and film a service from Cheltenham Spa going out, but the rain picked up again, and well, probably looking back on it, it really wasn't a smart move from my part. And by the time eventually I finished filming that clip at the very end of the video, I was completely soaked. And it wasn't until over an hour later at Didcot Parkway when the sun finally did come out and stayed out like without any more interruptions, and it was only then I was finally able to dry off overall. At number 3, well, we went back to November 10th, 2018 at St Denis on the South Western Main Line. And the first thing you're probably wondering is, wait a minute, Ross, why is there no trains on the South Western Main Line in this? Okay, let me explain. So all the services on the day were only going via Fareham because there was engineering works in the EC area, so that meant there was no cross-country, there was no Romsey Loop services, and also the main South Western Railway London to Weymouth services were being diverted. That's only half the story. Originally on the day, I was with a group of other spotters, and were supposed to do some spotting not just at Bournemouth, but then afterwards go over to Southampton Central to see a javelin tour. But that went awry in a hurry when the javelin tour came through Southampton Central much earlier than actually the group I was with expected it. So eventually when we did get to Southampton Central, we didn't know what to do, and it just looked like the trip had come this way pretty much for nothing, until one of the groups suggested that maybe we should try out St Denis, which by the time when we did get there, it was pouring down with rain like crazy. Now, the station itself, based on my 2 visits there, of course I visited there several weeks later in January 2019, it's not a bad station overall on a good day, with all services, or sometimes when you get diverts. As for the rain itself, it just kept pouring down, and it wasn't really until the end of filming, it only then did start to another bit, which by the time it did start really getting dark. Now, at least this time, although despite some of the canopy of the station I do have to question, but at least some of the canopy that was at least pretty much intact, at least I chose the option just to stay under cover and not take the chance this time. So there is some consolation about this place. Oh yes. So now on to number 2. Fast forward a month after sending these, and it was my first visit to Didcot Parkway on December 15th, 2018. And to put it like this, at the time, looking it back now, it was a complete utter disaster. Now, at the time when I was doing Didcot Parkway, I was doing my Christmas special for 2018, and well, it felt more like filming in I think we'd say a force 9 gale. The weather was awful, with heavy rain and 25-mile-an-hour winds, temperatures being just a few degrees above freezing. It made it very difficult to film. The weather itself, it was so bad, it just became impossible to film any trains coming from the Cotswolds line that day, and even by the time I did finish filming, eventually just after around Harper's, I think it was Harper's 4 that evening, my hands were completely numb because of the cold. And yes, back then, IETs, they ran through the station on diesel mode. Yes, and the only time they only changed to electric mode is if they were stopping at the station. Or the other option at the time was the same place where Oxford trains, IETs, would actually switch from electric to diesel or diesel to electric, which is at Didcot East Junction. As for the rain itself, it didn't end there. It just refused to let up, and by the time I got back home to when I was living temporarily at the time in Upminster, the rain just kept on going. Well, if there's one thing consolation out of this, at least the trains were nice and warm. Although, as I kind of mentioned before with the IETs, even though the seating side of things wasn't very comfortable though. So, effectively, after all this, that it's now time to reveal what my number 1 experience filming in the rain was. And well, for those who've probably watched the video at the time when I premiered this originally, which actually was, even though I filmed this last July, but although it didn't really premiere till September, should not be surprised of what the number 1 experience filming in the rain is, and that has to be this place. So to number 1, Stevenage, July 30th, 2021. And well, at the time, this was my last day of my breakaway, and I thought, why not do East Coast Main Line? And well, I was aware that bad weather was coming. Yes, I kind of got a bit of preview earlier that morning at Hadley Woods. However, when it came to Stevenage, well, for starters, it didn't seem to be a big deal at first. But the thing was, I was aware that the rain was going to hit at some point, based on my experience 2 days earlier on the West Anglian Main Line, where the rain sort of spent most of the day playing mind games. 1 minute it was clear, and 10 minutes later a big shower turns up. In this case, for most of it, the weather did seem at first was going to hold off. However, unfortunately for the few final clips, the rain arrived and turned into a torrential downpour. I was completely drenched from top to bottom. That's how intense the rain was, and you probably think I was mad. However, since I did suffer getting sunburnt the previous day whilst on the West Coast Main Line, and I did end up suffering a meltdown when I got back to the hotel the night before, I decided, despite this, I had to give it a go. Because, as I mentioned already, it was my last day before I headed back home to Devon, so I didn't really have anything to lose. So, despite the torrential conditions towards the end of that video, I decided to take the chance, and I kind of paid the price for it. I got completely drenched. Even the rain jacket I had on was completely no match for the rain. And it wasn't until I got back, well, effectively thanks to the air conditioning systems of the Car 700 and the S-Tuck, when I got back to Liverpool Street via King's Cross, of course, I was only able to find it to be completely dried off. Now, I was originally going to try and do Stratford afterwards, but after my experience at Stevenage, well, I kind of decided I might as well hold off Stratford for now. Eventually, I would film that. Eventually, come into November, a couple of months after. So there you are. That's my top 5 experiences filming in the rain. So I want to hear from you. Do you have any memorable experiences filming in the rain, whether it's stationed in my top 5 or elsewhere? So let me know in the comments below. Or if you want to, you could leave a like, share, and you want to, subscribe to my channel for more rail content. And until my next video, see you next time. Bye guys.